we've got the president, a former president of the United States, and likely, possibly, depending on how you interpret the polls, a future president of the United States, being hauled into court in the middle of the presidential campaign on allegations he committed a crime they won't tell him the details of. Let's go back up to New York City. We have just completed the fourth week, as I call it, of America held hostage, where President Trump is a political hostage in the courtroom of a Democratic donor, politician, Judge Merchan, who has kept him there, shackled him, gagged him, not literally shackled him, but effectively has shackled him to the courtroom up there. The beginning of the week began with another finding by the court that Trump violated his anti-constitutional, anti-First Amendment, election-interfering gag order. He fined him again and again reiterated that he could send him to jail if he keeps on defending his God-given rights under the First Amendment. As I described it on Twitter, Judge Merchan, conflicted Biden donor and Democratic Party politician, again fines and threatens to jail Trump for exercising his God-given First Amendment rights. Never before in American history has a presidential candidate like Trump, former president, been prohibited from defending himself and his campaign prohibited from speaking about a matter of public import. It's astonishing. And the courts in New York have been compromised and corrupted. And how do I know that? The proof is in the pudding. And the pudding is the awful anti-constitutional gag on Trump's activities and speech during this election interfering trial. And so after that added abuse, because the abuse continues, the government or the prosecutors up in New York, who are also, which is also run by a Democrat appointed, a Democrat politician, not appointed, an actual Democrat politician, Soros-backed prosecutor Alvin Bragg, started with more abuse by bringing in Stormy Daniels. Now, those of you who haven't been following along, Stormy Daniels, at least her name's at the center of this because Bragg is alleging that Trump paid money to Cohen, who had paid money to Stormy Daniels to give her some consideration for a confidentiality agreement related to any interaction or anything else she had with President Trump. And the government and Bragg is saying, well, that should have been reported as a campaign contribution, and it was misreported as a legal expense. And they're not quite clear as to what law that they violated in terms of what it should have been reported on. So we've got the president, a former president of the United States, and likely, possibly, depending on how you interpret the polls, a future president of the United States, being hauled into court in the middle of the presidential campaign on allegations he committed a crime they won't tell him the details of. The only specific allegation that you can hang your hat on is that the transaction data for the payments to Michael Cohen by Trump's people and Trump were mislabeled internally. And that falls apart because they were labeled as legal expenses, and it's clear it was a legal expense. So did Stormy Daniels know anything about this other than the fact that she was willing to testify to a sexual tryst with Trump? No. So her testimony, to the degree it was needed at all, could have been over in 3 minutes. Instead, and the court let them do this, they brought her in, and the Democrats elicited testimony from her that was graphic, unnecessary, inflammatory, and should have resulted in a mistrial for Mr. Trump. And instead, Merchant, as I say, and I called it, this is how I called it, an evil and malicious attack, or in this case, actions by the Democratic politicians. So this was a twofer. The president, the prosecutor, and the judge were both involved in the show trial. And Trump called for a mistrial after this craziness. And the judge, believe it or not, of course, because he isn't going to take responsibility. He said, well, you should have objected. I could have upheld some of the objections. And he admitted some of the testimony shouldn't have come in. And he blamed the Trump legal team for not raising objections. But the fact is, as she was to testify, they asked that that type of testimony be prohibited. And he said no. And then he yells at them for not raising objections subsequently. What a hack. It was terrible. It was terrible. And what a mockery it makes of the rule of law in New York. What a mockery it makes of our nation across the world. That that the former president and leading candidate is being harassed and smeared in this way. And as this is happening, you have these headlines about Stormy Daniels' testimony across the nation, and Trump is literally prohibited by pain of jail from speaking out about it. I've never seen anything like it. I think I had a tweet up that I think even President Trump tweeted out, or at least retruthed out on Truth Social. What was the tweet I put up there? Judge Merchan is out of control in New York. His political rulings against Trump are assaults on fairness, logic, and the rule of law. Truly, truly shameful. And Trump agrees. And he's right to agree, because I'm right. Obviously. It's shameful. And what's interesting is, I was thinking about this shortly before I came on. Now, maybe it's because I don't traipse in the crazy swampland of the left media the way others do. But forgive me, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't think I've even heard much in the way of leftist defense of what's going on in New York. There's kind of this silence. They're not promoting it the way they would in other circumstances. So I think even the left realizes, oh, this is a bridge too far. And others have noted that he may have a case for a mistrial depending on how this trial turns out. Well, the problem with that is that could happen in 2 years. I mean, he could be convicted by what is likely to be almost an overwhelmingly Democratic jury. It's in New York City. I mean, that's the whole purpose of trying to bring him in, because they thought whatever they would tell the jury doesn't matter. The jury's going to convict them because it's anti-Trump. And so the question I have, and I don't know the answer to it because I haven't seen much reporting on it, and I've been trying to track what's been going on in the courtroom, but there hasn't been much reporting on the jury's reaction to this testimony. I wonder how the jury reacted to Stormy Daniels' nastiness, her being caught in displays of outrageous bias against Trump. I mean, it's her right? But does it make her a more credible witness? And of course, she's not a witness to anything other than her alleged interaction with Trump. And that's not the issue. Now, the government says, well, of course it's the issue, because if they had a relationship, it goes to his motivation. Well, that could have been, they could have gotten evidence in that wasn't so disruptive and out of line in terms of smearing Trump. And of course, the goal is, and maybe they think they're losing, so it doesn't matter. They're just going to go and try to take Trump out through smears and innuendo. And if it's a friendly jury, it doesn't matter what they do because they're not held to any legal standards. So, a sensible jury would look at this and say, there's no there there. Again, and I'm trying to be objective here. It's, I'm looking for information that would make me think, oh, I wonder if that jury, that's the crime. or that's the evidence of the crime that might be persuasive to a jury. I haven't seen it. It hasn't been presented. The government said they have 2 more witnesses, including Michael Cohen, who's got issues of his own, the former lawyer for the president. So that's where we stand on the abuse of Trump, and nothing's been done about it. Republicans have been AWOL in defending Trump. I don't know if you saw the news this week, but Speaker Johnson survived a challenge to a speakership thanks to Democrats. And he told Politico he was not planning to do anything to curtail the abuses by Jack Smith. Nothing in appropriations bills. Of course, I've been asking and highlighting that opportunity for the last half year or so, and it's no surprise he's reiterated that he's not going to do anything. Prior to now, he's kind of just pretended, Speaker Johnson has, that, well, he doesn't have the votes. Now it looks like he's literally opposed to doing it on principle. He doesn't want to restrict Jack Smith. So this is a terrible abuse, what's happening. And on the other hand, the Stormy Daniels trial, for a disinterested observer, or excuse me, the testimony, I guess the left wants it to be the Stormy Daniels trial. It's about how records were listed in a ledger 6 years ago. It may backfire. I mean, is it so craven and despicable and shameful that a juror says, this is gross. I know what's going on here. I don't like Trump, but I'm not going to play this game. And you get a hung jury. I don't think he's going to get acquitted. I just don't think he's going to get acquitted. But I could be wrong. So 2 more witnesses, and then President Trump puts on his defense. If he so chooses, he may not put on a defense. Maybe he can say, there's no evidence here. There's nothing to defend against. They haven't proven their case. That's what sometimes defenses do, criminal defendants do, is that they just rest after the government puts on their case because their position is they haven't made the case. And as of now, they haven't made the case. It's been 4 weeks of a kangaroo court with zero evidence of criminal activity by Trump. The only evidence I could see, so what I said about Stormy Daniels, allowing her to testify to the irrelevant but salacious details of her alleged encounter with Trump, because she needed to establish her credibility. That was Merchant's excuse for allowing all that sex talk in. Calling this a kangaroo court, well, that's a pretty good line. I forgot I said that. It's true. It's an insult to kangaroos. Although I understand in Australia, kangaroos aren't as well liked as we presume. They're more seen as pests than those of us looking at it from afar. But it is a kangaroo court. It's a show trial. Every negative thing you could say about this trial, you could fairly say. And it probably wouldn't be enough. So, however upsetting it was to see this abuse of Trump, it may have been a step too far. And the lemonade from that lemon might be a willingness either by the American people to discount this abuse even further, or it may ruin the case completely for them even at the jury stage. So we'll see. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.